What happens when America's sweetheart suddenly finds herself at the center of a controversy that threatens to unravel everything she's built? That's exactly what played out on the Today Show with Jenna and Friends, a segment that started as a routine promotional stop and ended as one of the most explosive live TV moments in recent memory. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Carrie Underwood made the stunning decision to walk away from one of television's most beloved morning shows. From the moment Carrie slid into the studio chair across from Jenna Bushhager, the energy was different. The camera crew, veterans of countless celebrity interviews, later described a crackling tension, something that hummed beneath the surface of polite banter. Jenna opened with her trademark warmth. "Carrie, it's always such a pleasure to have you here. Your new album is breaking records, and fans are loving how personal these songs feel." Carrie smiled, but there was an edge. "Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate that. Though I have to say, some of the coverage around this album has been, shall we say, interesting." The co-hosts exchanged quick glances. Even Jenna, trained to handle curveballs, leaned in a little closer. "Interesting how?" she asked, her voice balanced between curiosity and caution. Carrie straightened in her chair, her tone sharper than fans were used to hearing. "There's this narrative floating around that I've somehow abandoned my values, that this record marks some kind of drastic personal transformation people should be worried about." The studio went silent, one of those stretches of live television where every second feels stretched into an eternity. Jenna recovered quickly, offering a careful redirect. "I think what people are responding to is the authenticity. You've shared personal struggles and growth, and it's really resonating." But Carrie wasn't letting it go. Her hands, now animated, cut through the air as she spoke. "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Why does growth have to be framed as struggle? Why can't a woman evolve and explore her artistry without it being dissected like some psychological case study?" One co-host tried to smooth things over. "I think what's beautiful is how you've stayed true to your core values while growing as an artist. That's not easy in this industry." Carrie's expression sharpened instantly. "My core values," she repeated slowly. "And what exactly do you think those are?" The studio froze. The familiar rhythm of morning television, softball questions, polished answers, was gone. Something raw had taken its place. Jenna, refusing to retreat, pressed forward with measured calm. "I think people see you as someone who represents family, faith, authenticity. Those qualities have made you not just a successful artist, but someone America feels it can trust." That word, trust, ignited something in Carrie. Her voice dropped, low and deliberate. "Trust. That's fascinating, Jenna. Because I'm sitting here wondering, who decided what my values should be? And why is everyone so invested in keeping me locked inside a box that I never agreed to in the first place?" By then, the entire atmosphere had shifted. What began as easy morning chatter had turned into raw confrontation. Jenna's composure held, but her voice betrayed a slight tremor. "I don't think anyone's trying to put you in a box, Carrie. I think people just connect with the messages in your music." The cameras kept rolling, capturing every micro-expression. Producers scrambled in control rooms across the country. What was supposed to be a promotional stop had become live television history. "The way you've always represented certain values," one of the co-hosts began gently. Carrie leaned forward, eyes locked on Jenna. "But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? You keep saying what I've always represented, as if I'm some museum exhibit, frozen in time, instead of a living, breathing, evolving human being. Tell me, Jenna, when was the last time someone questioned whether you were staying true to your values just because you grew or changed your mind?" The words landed with surgical precision. For the briefest second, Jenna's composure slipped. Viewers at home saw it. This wasn't just about Carrie anymore. It was about anyone who had ever felt trapped inside someone else's expectations. A co-host jumped in, trying to diffuse the heat. "Carrie, I think what we're all saying is that your fans love you. They're not trying to limit you. They're celebrating you." Carrie gave a sharp, humorless laugh. Are they celebrating me or their idea of me? Because there's a big difference. And frankly, I'm tired of pretending there isn't. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't uncomfortable TV anymore. This was confrontation, raw and unplanned. Jenna found her footing again, drawing on years of polish. I hear you, Carrie, and I respect that you want to grow as an artist. But surely you understand why people might be confused when someone they've looked up to suddenly seems to be rejecting everything they thought they knew about her. That single word, rejecting, was the spark. Carrie's eyes flashed. Her voice, calm but razor-sharp, cut through the studio. Rejecting? Let me tell you what I'm rejecting, Jenna. I'm rejecting the idea that I owe anyone an explanation for my growth. I'm rejecting the notion that I need permission to explore my own identity. And I'm absolutely rejecting this interview format where I'm expected to defend my right to be a complex human being. The silence that followed was total, not the polite pause of morning TV. The kind of silence that comes when everyone knows they're watching a moment that will live far beyond the broadcast. Jenna, to her credit, didn't flinch. Her voice stayed steady, though now it carried an edge of steel. Nobody's asking you to defend yourself, Carrie. This is a conversation about your music and your career. That's what interviews are for. Are they? Carrie shot back instantly. Because it seems to me this stopped being about music the second you started dissecting my values. When did my album become secondary to whether I measure up to some arbitrary standard I never agreed to? The other hosts sat in silence. The dynamic of the show had collapsed. This was no longer a panel. It was a duel. Jenna's jaw tightened. A Carrie? With respect, when you release music that's personal, and you come on shows like ours to promote it, you're inviting analysis. That's how this industry works. You know that better than anyone. The implication that Carrie was being naive, maybe even dishonest, landed like a punch. She pushed back her chair and stood. The atmosphere shifted instantly. You're right about one thing, Jenna, Carrie said, her voice low but final. I do know how this industry works. I know exactly how it works. And I'm done pretending I have to participate in the parts that diminish me as a person. The studio felt electrified, dangerous, alive. Everyone knew the point of no return had been crossed. Jenna remained seated, her spine straight, her eyes steady. Carrie, please sit down. Let's finish this conversation like professionals. That calm request, delivered with authority, only fueled Carrie further. She shook her head slowly, her voice rising just enough to carry weight. No, Jenna, this isn't professionalism. This is performance. And I won't play the role you've written for me anymore. And with that, she turned toward the edge of the set, leaving the audience, the hosts, and the cameras in stunned silence. Her response came with an intensity that made the entire studio realize they were no longer dealing with the polished, media-trained Carrie Underwood they thought they knew. Professionals. Carrie repeated, her voice rising for the first time. You want to talk about professionalism, Jenna? Let me tell you what's professional. Professional would have been doing your homework on my album, asking me about my songwriting process, my inspirations, the technical craft. Professional would not have been ambushing me with dime store psychology about my personal evolution. Jenna's composure cracked for the first time. Her reply carried an edge rarely heard from her. Nobody ambushed you, Carrie. These are legitimate questions about an album you put out for public consumption. If you didn't want people to discuss the personal themes, maybe you shouldn't have made them the centerpiece of your promotional campaign. The accusation hit like a thrown gauntlet. Carrie's reaction was instant, fierce. Her eyes narrowed. Her voice turned razor-sharp. My promotional campaign? She echoed with disbelief. Jenna, I've done exactly 3 interviews about this album. 3. And in every single one, the focus has been on dissecting my personal life instead of celebrating the artistry, Do you know what's really going on here? You're upset because I'm not giving you the sanitized, easy version of myself that makes for neat little television. You're frustrated because I refuse to be the docile celebrity who smiles while you reduce 2 years of creative work into a therapy session for your viewers' entertainment. The co-hosts had gone silent. Spectators, now to a duel between 2 women who refused to yield. Even the camera operators seemed to understand they were documenting television history. Jenna rose from her chair, refusing to let Carrie command the stage alone. Her tone was firm, controlled, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of anger. Carrie, you're being unfair, and you know it. We've been respectful. We've given you every opportunity to share your perspective. If you're not happy with the direction of the conversation, then help shape it. Don't attack us for doing our jobs. That word, attacking, snapped something in Carrie. Her anger cooled into something sharper, colder, final. You're right, Jenna, she said softly, though the authority in her voice filled the studio. I will change the direction of this conversation. Let me make myself very clear. I didn't come here to be psychoanalyzed by people who think they know my motivations better than I do. I didn't come here to defend my right to grow as a woman, as an artist, as a human being. And I certainly didn't come here to be lectured about professionalism by someone who thinks ambush journalism dressed up as morning fluff is a public service. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jenna's face had gone pale. Her co-hosts looked like they wanted to vanish. The unspoken contract between host and guest, the polite fiction that makes television interviews possible, had shattered. Jenna's voice, when it finally came, was cold as steel. If that's how you feel, Carrie, then maybe you should reconsider why you agreed to come on the show in the first place. The challenge was unmistakable. Carrie's response was swift and decisive. With calm, deliberate movements, she reached for her microphone pack. The sound of the Velcro tearing free seemed deafening in the hush. You're absolutely right again, she said, standing tall. I should reconsider a lot of things, starting with why I keep subjecting myself to interviews with people more interested in controversy than conversation, more invested in conflict than creativity. The crew scrambled, unsure whether to intervene. In the control room, producers shouted into headsets, torn between salvaging the segment and letting the drama unfold. Jenna tried once more, her composure cracking into desperation. Carrie, please don't do this. We can start over. We can talk about whatever you want. But Carrie was already stepping away, microphone in hand like a symbol of her refusal to play along any longer. At the edge of the set, she turned back one final time. The expression on her face wasn't anger. It wasn't frustration. It was something far more powerful. Finality. A moment of total clarity. The look was burned into the cameras, a frame destined to be replayed across networks, dissected by pundits, and remembered as the instant America's sweetheart refused to play the role anymore. And then, without another word, Carrie Underwood walked off the set. It was the expression of someone who had reached a moment of absolute clarity about what they would and would not accept. You want to know what I want to talk about, Jenna? Carrie said, her voice ringing through the studio with crystalline precision. I want to talk about the fact that we just spent 20 minutes discussing everything, except my music. I want to talk about how female artists are expected to justify their evolution in ways male artists never are. I want to talk about how morning television has traded real conversation for manufactured drama. But most of all, I want to talk about how I'm done being complicit in my own diminishment. The words hit the air like a thunderclap. Even the most seasoned professionals in the room seemed stunned by the sheer finality of the statement. Jenna, who had weathered the confrontation with practiced poise, suddenly looked shaken. Carrie, she began, but her voice faltered, her confidence draining away. Carrie lifted her hand, the gesture soft, yet absolute. No, Jenna, I'm done here. I came on this show to share my music, not to be dissected under a microscope. And the fact that you can't tell the difference tells me everything I need to know about why this went the way it did." She stepped toward the edge of the set, microphone in hand. But before leaving, she turned, this time facing directly into the camera, her eyes blazing with conviction. To anyone watching who has ever felt pressured to stay small so others could stay comfortable, to anyone who has been told that growth is betrayal, to anyone who thinks they need permission to evolve, this one's for you. You don't owe anyone an explanation for becoming who you're meant to be. And with that, Carrie Underwood walked off the Today Show set. The silence she left behind was so complete, the sound technicians later swore they could hear the hum of the air conditioning. For the first time all morning, Jenna stood frozen, pale and motionless, while the co-hosts sat stricken, visibly processing what had just unfolded live. The cameras kept rolling. They always did. When Jenna finally spoke, her voice trembled despite her attempt to steady it. "Well," she said, straining for composure, "that was certainly not how we expected this interview to go. We want to thank Carrie for her time, and for her honesty." The awkwardness was palpable. The other hosts exchanged uncertain glances, their usual scripted cheer replaced by genuine bewilderment. One of them finally stammered, "I think we can all agree that was a very passionate discussion about artistry and growth. It landed with the hollow weight of a failed cover-up. The attempt to normalize only underscored how extraordinary the moment had been. By the time the show cut to commercial, producers across the country were already on the phones. Social media had ignited clips and commentary flooding timelines within minutes. The confrontation wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural flashpoint. Viewers debated celebrity culture, authenticity, and the price of artistic freedom in an industry that thrives on containment. Carrie Underwood's walk-off was more than a dramatic exit. It was a refusal to shrink, a line drawn against the machine of polished morning television. It was a reminder that behind every carefully packaged public figure stands a person with boundaries. And sometimes, those boundaries break live on air. So, what do you think? Was Carrie justified in walking off, or should she have stayed and finished the interview? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines, uncovering the real human drama behind the entertainment industry's biggest moments.